All right. All right, so let's continue. Sorry. Okay, so welcome again in our course, Calculus Connects. And today our agenda is to have a quick recap of what we have done earlier. And we will also touch upon, again, limits and something about that. So I have some queries from my students. So I will also discuss those things. And then we will move on to the second big thing in calculus, which is the introduction to derivative. Okay. So the plan is that, this in today's session, we are going to focus on derivative, especially the introduction. And in the third session, we are going to focus on introduction to integration. And then in fourth session, we will do some advanced derivative and integration. We will also be working on some applications and optimization problem. And on this last one, we might be doing some project altogether. Okay, so let's get started. I think we are enough people here. Yeah. All right. So the first thing first, let's have a quickly recap of what we have done earlier. So we actually discussed that we can categorize like the mathematics into 4 different subjects or 4 different categories. The first one actually was algebra, and we discussed that in algebra actually it's mainly about structure. Structure means the relationship. So we have variables and we have constant. So what is the connections or the structure between them or among them? So we find some, so algebra helps us to make some relationship or structure and then solve them. So one of the example actually here we have A, B, and C. So in this triangle, Pythagoras theorem, a square plus b square equals c square. So this is what we do in algebra. So we find equations and we find the relationship between different components and constants and variables. Next thing was the geometry, and we learned that the geometry is all about the mathematics of shape or the space, and of course the trigonometry and circles and conic sections and the motion of planets and the speed of the galaxies. All these things we study in this geometry. Yeah. So everything, all the physical things, they have particular shapes. So we also want to understand them. So what are the properties of the shapes and so on. For example, like the bubbles, why the bubbles, the soap bubbles, they are spherical shape. What are the driving factors? So of course, mathematics helps us understand all those things, or why all the planets, or most of the actually all the planets, they are spherical in shape, and so on. So you see, the shapes are super important in our life, and math, of course, helps us understand them better. Then we have chance, and it's all about the probability and statistics. That is the third biggest category of mathematics we have learned so far. So it's all about chance, and we study here probability and likelihood and different distributions, like a normal distribution, Poisson distribution, and so on, permutations and all these things. So this might seem maybe not very much interesting for some of the students, but especially if you study the not the calculus, quantum mechanics. So you will see actually when we define some particles, we use the probability functions. So even those apparently physical things, they have to do with the probability, and even their existence based on the probability or the chance. So that's why this is our very, very, very important thing also. Then the thing which is our main theme for this sessions is calculus. So can someone quickly tell me what calculus is about? So, or maybe what is the single word we can use to maybe define the calculus as it's mathematics of perfect change? Yeah, exactly. So it is about mathematics of change. And here we study, and since we learned that the change is the only constant, as this was a very famous quote by Einstein. That means change is inevitable. You will always have change. Everything is changing. We are evolving. Depending on the time and also other factors. So we always discuss the changes, and that's how the calculus helps us understand understand the things around us. Okay, so this we discussed, and we also learned about the change. There is a way to quantify change. So like once we know the calculus is all about change, we have to find a formula of change. Okay, so then then the whole story of basically like the derivative integrations or all those things we study in calculus, it starts actually from the very idea of the change. Actually, let me very quickly tell you what the calculus actually it was established by Newton and also Leibniz. But Newton actually he was studying the gravitational force, and the force of gravity depends on the distance. But let me actually quickly show you. That was the topic. Let me quickly show you here. So basically, the Newton was studying the force of gravity. How the gravity changes as we go away from the center of the mass. So basically, the curve actually we get is something like this. So, and the Newton wanted to find out how the curve is changing, because like math is all about change. So he wanted to know how the derivative or how the gravity is changing with respect to the distance, and that is the reason he just developed all those things. So we will come to this point in a while. Let's move on. So this was actually our previous topic. We also studied about the limits. So I will also quickly go through the limits now. And so we also discussed this thing, since we want to quantify the change, and we have to start from something we already know. So everyone knows actually, even a child knows, but not this child. But the grade 5 or grade 6 children, they learn about slopes or gradient, right? So why? Because this actually gives you an idea of change. So in calculus, we want to modify, or we want to improve this very concept of gradient. And we just realized the problem in this case, that the slope or the gradient in the when we learn, for example, in this equation, this actually depends on the straight line. So as you can see here, when you have a straight line, like this straight line, then you can easily find the slope. But what happens when we don't have this straight line, when we have a curve? So today's discussion is all about that thing. So, but before we do so, I'm going to improve this thing, so delta y or delta x, this slope or the gradient. To improve this one, I will say that delta x becomes very, very small, or infinitesimally small. The reason why we do so, we will discover them when we study the derivative in a while. But this is how we define the derivative. So this guy actually, on the left-hand side, is called the derivative. Okay. So the derivative is simply defined as the limit when the change in x is extremely small, for the slope. So whenever you have this function, we all know this thing. This is slope or the gradient, and when we take the limit, this becomes the derivative. Okay, so before we continue for the derivative, let's discuss quickly that there are three main ideas in calculus which we're going to focus throughout this session. The first one is, whenever you have any graph or any curve, so we want to know, we are interested in finding the value of a point, particular, like when the value of x is 3, what is the value of y, and so on. So like loosely speaking, I can represent this by limit. Then the graph can also tell you about the change, how the curve is changing, it is going up or going down, or is straight. And actually this is represented with derivatives. And then we have the area under the curve. It might seem very not very interesting, like why we are interested in knowing the area under the curve, but we will see actually, the area under the curve happens to be the antiderivative or the opposite of derivative. So and we call them integrations. I'm sorry. So we call them integrals of integrations. So this is all about calculus. Of course, then we also study, we also do the applications of these things, but this is the main idea in calculus, essentially, limit, derivative, and integration. All right, so then let's move on. We discussed them in detail also. So I asked you to join this group, and I think most of you, or maybe all of you, are already into this group. So today we'll also do some activity during the class session. I will also be assisting you working on GeoGebra. Okay. Yeah, so you know that the difficult part in calculus is not the calculus, but the algebra. So this course actually is designed to remove algebra out of the equation as much as we can, even though the algebra is super important. I mean, I already emphasized earlier, but we will try not to get lost in algebra. We'll try to focus on the idea or the concept, okay? But if at some point, if you need more clarification algebraically, please do let me know. I can also assist you, help you. But I will try not to discuss a lot about the algebra or the all those derivations. So the focus is going to be mainly on the concept. So let's also quickly recap the limit now. We have maybe 10 more minutes for the limit. So of course, all of you are already familiar with the function sine theta. So I will also discuss the sine theta in detail in a while. Okay, so Asif is needing the GeoGebra password. So maybe Miss Momina, if you can share, Mohsina, sorry, the password with Asif. All right, so the sine theta. So when the theta is 0, when we say that limit theta goes to 0 of sine theta, so what we do basically, we are actually essentially finding the value of the function at that particular point. So once you insert theta equals 0, sine 0, you can of course use a calculator or GeoGebra. You will see it is 0. Okay. Similarly, whenever you have another function, let's say a limit of x when x goes to 0, this is also 0. So I mean, what we are doing here, we are literally putting x equals 0 and finding the value. So this you all know, but what about this thing? So if you make another function, for example, sine theta over theta, so it's like it's a fraction or it's a combination of a function, sine theta over theta. What do you think the answer is going to be? As you know from the above, so once you apply the limit sine theta, the top one will be kind of 0 thing. It will become 0, right? But the bottom will also become 0. Okay, so sine 0 is 0 and theta is also 0. So what is this thing? This is actually a bit confusing, especially if you are doing it calculus for the first time. Of course, you already know like these kind of things, like 1 over like or 0 over 1 something. This is 0, right? This is 0 over anything is 0. So this is we know already. We also know that if 1 over 0, if we have something and then we divide that by 0, that is not possible. So this tends to infinity basically. So this is the idea of infinity. So these two things maybe we already know. But what is this, guys? 0 over 0. So now we have a problem. Is it going to be like 0 or infinity? So for example, I can also write the same thing. I can also write this as 0 times, since 1 over 0 is infinity, so I can also write this as 0 times infinity. So I just a bit confused, is it going to be 0 or infinity? So this seems like a paradox. So let's try to understand them, what is happening here, okay? But before we do so, do you understand my problem? Like, do you understand what the question is? If you have any question, let me know. Perfect. So we have to also investigate. Maybe if you have already taken calculus, some of you already know the value of this thing, but we have to understand why is that so? Like, how come 0 over 0 is defined in this case? I will also discuss this thing in a while. I will use the GeoGebra, but also let me also pose another question for you. So limit I have again theta or x. Theta doesn't matter. Theta goes to 0. I have cos theta minus 1 over theta. Actually, let me use not theta but x. So I have limit x goes to 0. I have cos x over x. Sorry, cos x minus 1 over x. I have these two functions, and as you can see here, if you put cos x, if maybe cos x should be if cos 0 is 1, you can use the GeoGebra and other app. So cos 0 is 1 and 1 minus 1 is 0. So you will also get 0 or 0. So this is also another case. So let's try to investigate these values and then see what is happening and how we can understand these limits. So limits are again super important because this is the building block of even the derivative and integration. So it depends on the very idea of limit. So let's spend some time, 5 more minutes maybe, to understand the idea of these two guys. Okay, actually, I would recommend, if you have a piece of paper, do copy these things: limit sine theta over theta, and also the second one, cos x minus 1 over x. Okay. Okay, allow is saying 0. Okay, let's see. So, this is the GeoGebra app, as you can see. I would recommend you to, for now, if you're using the laptop, do use the online version or the web version. It is a bit better than the GeoGebra Classic. So if you simply type geogebra.org, you will end up on this. You will land up on this homepage. So click on this blue button, start calculating, and there you have it. So this is the interface. Oh, let me just delete it. So this is the interface, by the way. Before I do so, let me also tell you, if you click on this guy, graphing, so you see it has 3D calculator, geometry, and CAS. So CAS actually, especially if you're using the offline version, you should be installing the CAS app, especially on your phones, CAS app, because if you want to find the limit or the derivative, you have to install this app, CAS. So while you are installing on your mobile phone, Android or iPhone, so write GeoGebra and CAS. So you should be able to, and this icon you will see, and then you have to install this one. This works. This actually tells you about all the formulas and so on. So let's see the function of sine x. So this is how the sine function looks like. Yeah, I think most of you already know this thing. This is a wave function, and we also have the second function was sine x over x. So second function was simply x. So as you can see here, both of the function, if we zoom in, you see when the x is 0, they are the sine x is also 0 and the y equals x is also 0. But what happens when I divide these two guys together? So let me simply divide them. I will simply type f, which is sine x, divided by g. By the way, f and g, these are defined in GeoGebra because f of x. So GeoGebra automatically assign some notation to the functions. Okay. So once I press enter, it's already here, by the way. So h of x is defined as sine x over x. Let me turn these off, these two guys. Okay. So this is the function of sine x over x. And as you can see here, the function, the value of the function is 1. Okay. I will discuss why it is 1 in a while. Let me also first try to see, like, it is 1, but why it is 1? Like generally when we saw here, it was 0 over 0, right? In this scenario, it was 0 over 0. But when we plot them, it seems that they approaches to 1. Actually, it is not equal to 1, but it approaches to 1, for example. Okay. But how come, it is 0? If it is 0 over 0, then how come it is 1? How can we understand this idea? Okay, so let me discuss this thing in a while, but let me first try to sketch the second function or second limit, which was cos x minus 1 over x. So I will simply type it here. So input cos x and minus 1. Okay, then we have x again. So we have p and q, these two functions. Let me remove this thing. So we have these two functions. You see, cos x minus 1 is this orange guy, and q of x equals x is the blue one. Okay, so let's divide these two guys. So p over q, it's q. All right, and let's see. So p over q, let me remove this thing. So p over q, as you can see here, this is equals to 0 this time. You see, like this curve is 0, and this curve is 1. And now my question is that, in this case, both of them, they are giving us 0 over 0 form, right? 0 over 0 and 0 over 0. But how come this happens to be 1 and this happens to be 0? Okay. Sometimes you might end up with some other value bit, but like generally these are the special cases. Okay, we have someone who wants to answer. Yes, Ubed, do you want to say something?
Which software is this? Which software is this? Kindly tell me.
It's GeoGebra. Let me also type here, geogebra.org. geogebra.org. So you just go there and then you will see. Okay, anyone wanna answer? How come the first thing comes out to be 1, but the second one is 0? How can we understand them? Because infinity x 0 is 1. Yeah, but if it is 1, then how come this is 0 then? Okay, so let's see down. Let's try to understand what is happening here. Let me take this out, and let's just try to first understand sin x over x. What is happening here? So let me remove this thing. So as you can see here, this is a function of sin x, the green one. The blue one is y equals x. And if I zoom in, I want to find the value, or I want to see how the function is behaving when we go very close to the origin. As you can see here, even though we are not at 0, but maybe we are at 0.4 or 0.3 or even 0.2, both of them, they're equal. You see, these two functions, they appear to be equal in the very close vicinity, or in the vicinity of the point 0. So that means that those two functions are equal. Okay, so when you go close to the 0, those two functions, sin x and x, both of them, they will behave as if they are the same thing. So that means they are going to, so they will be cancelled out. You can think maybe like this. So they will be cancelled out because they are equal. And of course, they're not equal all the time. But in the case when we have this limit here, when we have this limit, theta equals 0, then sin theta and theta becomes equal. So you can think intuitively that we are going to cancel them. And that's why, they just cancel out. And so something over something, let's say 2 over 2, it gives you 1. That's why, it gives you 1. Of course, there are also some other methods, mainly sandwich theorem and so many other complicated things. But I really don't want you to confuse with those kind of things. I just want you to understand what is happening intuitively. Okay. And let's try to see what is happening in this case. So if this is 1, so let's see what is happening in this case when we have cos x minus 1 and cos x and x. Okay. So as you can see here, maybe now I think it will be clear. So when you go close to 0, let's see what is happening. When we go close to 0, let's say 0.5, 0.05, how the function is behaving. For example, like this orange function, cos x minus 1, this becomes approximately 0. But even though, as you can see here, if I zoom in, this function is like the bottom function, cos x minus 1, this becomes 0 already. But the function y equals x, it is not 0 still. It is still 0.05. That means, if this function cos x minus 1, this becomes 0 much faster than this function. So that means essentially what is happening, that the cos x minus 1, it is becoming 0 very quickly. So this becomes 0, but this is still not 0. So like in the case when x goes to 0. So this is not 0 basically. X is not equals to 0. But this becomes 0. And now we know, 0 or anything or something except 0, right? This equals 0. So I hope you get the idea. Okay. So we can see like how the function is behaving at that point. Yeah, we can use the L'Hopital rules, and there are so many other, but that's actually, again, it's like algebra, but this course emphasize on the concept. All right. There actually, if you find that there are so many theorems to find the limits and so on, but yeah, this is how it works. All right. Any question you have now? Okay, then as a last option, let's also try to see what is happening if we have this function cos x over x only. So let's see what happens. Maybe in this case, when we have limit cos x over x, x goes to 0. So as in this case, as you can see here, cos 0 is 1, and 1 over 0, it should be infinity. So let's try to see what is happening in this case. We can quickly sketch them. So cos x divided by x. So I have to zoom out. So as you can see here, in this case, cos x over x, as you have seen in this slide here, that it does not exist. It is infinity, and you see here at the point when cos x over x, when x equals 0, the graph is behaving quite weirdly. It's going to infinity. Okay, but in these cases, the graph is 0 when we have cos x minus 1, and in this case, when sin x over x, the graph it is approximately 1. Okay. So I hope Okay, thank you. So is my voice better now? Okay, just let me change. Yeah. Can you hear fine? Can you hear me now? Fine. Okay. So if you don't see my, if you don't hear my voice properly and or maybe the screen, do let me know immediately. All right. So I will try to improve. Okay. So with this idea of limit, shall we move on? Okay, good. Okay, so next topic is the function, is of course the derivative. But before we understand that what the derivative is, we also have to understand some functions and like especially the very basic functions. So I think it's time to have a quick recap of what functions are. I will try to also introduce you in a bit in a bit informal way, not like a real definition. You can find those definitions in the book or many other resources. So to understand derivative properly, let's try to understand functions, because that is, the building block of the derivative, because we are going to find the derivative of functions. So we have to know what functions are. All right, so of course, you already know the functions, there is some domain and range and all those things. But actually, let me write like a very basic idea of the function, a basic formation. So f of x equals, let's say, x squared, for example. This is like a very, very simple example of function. So, what happens here, we have this x is the input. So function actually what it does, it changes input into output. So in this case, x is input and the x squared is, this guy is the output, okay? So for example, if I put x equals 3, then I get 9 as an output. So this is actually how we define a function. And there are so many other types of functions in mathematics, sin x or exponential function and logarithmic functions. We are going to have a quick review of all those things. But there's one thing I just want to emphasize, and that is extremely important, which is that, in the math actually is all about the certainty and precision and accuracy. So that means, whenever you are defining a function, we always want when we put any input, we need to get a particular output, and output has to be unique output. Okay, let me give you one example. So let's say if I have a function f of x, and let's say this is equals to plus minus x squared, for example. I put plus minus sign here. So let's see, what happens if I put 3 here in this case. So when I put 3 as an input, so the output is going to be, so 3 square is 9, but output is going to be either plus 9 or minus 9, right? In this case. So if this is the case, if we are giving any particular input and we are getting 2 different values, then this cannot be a function. Like by definition, the mathematicians, they hate this kind of behavior. They want the accuracy, they want the precision, or they want the certainty. So because, if you put 3 and then if you get 2 different values, then maybe if you're building your experiment on this very idea, then this might happen. If you're not very sure what is going to be the output, your end result might be quite different, and that is not how mathematics works. Math should be accurate and authentic. All right. So this is the idea you might have heard when you read the definition of the function, that for a particular value of x, there should be only one value of y. So this is the reason why we want only one value of y. This is the reason we want the surety or the authenticity or the accuracy. Okay. So for example, let me quickly draw a function, and then this is a function, for example, because for every single value of x, I get a particular value of y here. Okay. But let's say if I continue this function like this curve. So for this value, I can either get this point, right? Or I can also get this point. That means this is not a function because it gives me 2 values, and that is going to destroy the whole setup we are making based on mathematics, because math has to be, as I told you, certain. Okay, so that is why we have to exclude. This is called also the vertical line test. If you will see this later. So when you make a vertical line, the function should be, the vertical line should cross the function only once to have only single value of the function. So that's why I want to emphasize this point. So yeah, let's move on. I'm not going to write the proper definition. You can find on any textbook. Let's move on to, so our next task is to understand some functions, which is very important throughout our course. namely polynomials and trigonometric functions and exponential and logarithmic functions. So there are three categories of function. We are going to study them. Let me even write them here. So the first category is the polynomial functions. The second one is trigonometric. The third one is exponential or logarithmic. Exponential. Okay, so there are three categories. So please also copy these three things. Of course, you will see a lot of functions, but we can essentially group them into only these three categories. Okay. So it's also very important in mathematics. If you really want to understand them, you should be able to categorize them. You know, like you should be able to name them. So the naming or categorizing things is also one of the most important type of knowledge. Okay, this is what we do in physics, in biology, in chemistry. We always want to categorize things. That's how we learn. So polynomials, trigonometric, and exponentials. So essentially all the functions which we have, most of the functions which we have learned, they can come under these three categories. Of course, not all of them, but most of them. So let's move on to the very first one, the polynomial functions. Okay. Polynomial functions, and the polynomials, these are the kind of functions which is, sorry. Okay, so polynomial function, these are the functions which can be written, you know, in this form, as you can see here. For example, like ax to the power 4 plus bx cube plus cx squared plus dx and so on. And remember, you know, the power here, the degree, the power, it has to be an integer. It has to be a positive integer. So there's a rule actually. These numbers, those powers, they must be positive integer. This is the requirement. It cannot be a negative number, or it cannot be a fraction. So this is how these are the polynomials. So what is the benefit? You know, why we study, why the polynomials are so important? There are some reason. Let me discuss actually. You know, when you find the value of sine, let's say sine 30 or sine 45 or e to the power 30, like something on your calculator. So the calculator actually doesn't give you the answer like magically. Of course, there is something happening at the back end. And since the calculators, they are made up of logical circuits, they works actually on, actually they can, essentially all the calculators, they can simply add things. You know, they can simply tell you what is 2 plus 2. They can simply add two numbers or three numbers, that's it. They cannot actually divide or multiply all those things. So how they actually work, you know, if you continue adding things, that is called the multiplication. So if you want to find a multiplication, 2 times 3, so what they do, they simply add 2 plus 2 plus 2 3 times. And similarly, if you multiply, let's say 2 4 times, 2 times 2 times 2 times 2, that is called the exponent, or that is how we find the power of some number. So from the addition, we can find all those things. So the polynomials are important. But what about the values of sine x or sine, let's say sine 47 degrees and e to the power 99.7? How can we find this kind of thing on calculator? So again, we still use the calculators, they still use the polynomials, but this time they use the approximation. So thank you. The polynomials are actually, they are used also to calculate those things by calculator. Maybe we can see in our last session how it works, and we can also do some investigation on it. But remember that polynomials are important. So this is the one of the reason all the functions which we study, which we use calculator to find the value of, they use essentially the polynomials at the back end to simplify. That is the reason, you know, if you do some programming things in the university or anything, you have to understand polynomials very well, because they use it to model different scenario. So let's try to, you know, there are different types of polynomials. You know, when the order of the polynomial, the highest power is 0 in this case, then we call them constant polynomial. Constant polynomials. Just give me a second. Give me a second. So just give me a second. Just give me a second. Yeah, sorry. So the constant polynomial we have when the order is 0, and then it's called the linear polynomial ax plus b. We call them linear equation. Then we have quadratic, second power, cubic, and then quartic, and then it can also go on for power 5 and power 6 and so on. And these are some examples. So you see, we can also categorize all those linear functions, cubic functions, and quadratic functions, and whatever into polynomial functions. And that is very important to understand what are they. Because in the next slide, I'm going to show you another reason why they are so important. Okay. So linear constant function, y equals 5, as you can see here, linear, quadratic, cubic, quartic, or the fourth power, and I think it's called quintic or something, power 5th, power 6th, we can go, there is no limit. So why the polynomials are important and why we use them generally when we study derivative is because they are the super well-behaved functions. Oh, nice. Okay, I will discuss this question. So these polynomials, they are well-behaved. It means they are very smooth function, smooth and silky. So as you can see here, whenever you make this kind of polynomial when you plot them, the graph, you will see they will be very, very nicely, there will be no kings, or there will be no like a sharp turns. So the graph will be very smooth and nice. And since the world we are living in, the world is quite kind of continuous. The world around us, they behaved quite nice. So generally, when we make any when we do mathematical modeling, we use polynomials because they give us a nice picture, and we can simply do so many calculations. Let me quickly show you what I mean by these things. Let me simply delete them. So let me type here any polynomial function. So x to the power, let's say 7, and plus 3x to the power 6, and minus 5x to the power 2, and minus 2. Sorry. Minus 2. So you see here, these functions are quite nice actually. There shouldn't be any asymptote. I think if you zoom out, you will see you will see like they are quite nicely behaving. Okay. Only the first part here and the last part, they might be going to the infinity. Otherwise, there is a smoothly moving functions. Okay. I can also add some more parameters here. Let's say plus 4x to the power 4, and so on. Yeah. So that is the reason the polynomials, they are well-behaved and smooth functions. And again, we use polynomials to approximate all other functions, be it sin x or exponential functions, and so on. And just so you know, if you're interested how we use the approximation, that is when the Taylor series and Maclaurin series comes into play. Okay, so we use those things maybe. So you will see actually when you do the higher level calculus thing in the university, you will see those Taylor series and things where we approximate those functions, other functions. And this is how our calculators, our computers, they work, because they have no idea how to calculate sine 37 degree, for example. So what they can do, they can only do addition or subtraction. Okay, we have a question here. Please guide how we can apply vertical line test on functions with more than 2 dimensions. All right. It's very, very fancy question, by the way. So now actually we are going, the question is about how we can use the vertical line test when we have a 2-dimensional functions. So the 2-dimensional functions, I think, is a bit advanced topic. We have to go beyond the dimension, and the dimensions are not the easy thing. My suggestion, actually, we can use the vertical, not line, but vertical plane maybe, but it's not that simple. When we go higher dimension, the things change drastically. Actually, I really want to talk about the dimensions right now from physics point of view, but I think that's not the time and your place. But just be with me if you want after the lesson, and we can also discuss about the dimensions. What happens when we go one dimension up? Things change very, very drastically. Okay, so let's not discuss right now. Okay, I'm sorry. Let's move on. Okay, so again, polynomial functions, all the linear function, quadratic, cubic, they're all polynomials. They are important because they are smooth and they are well-behaved function, okay? They're not ill-behaved. By the way, can you give me an example of ill-behaved or the function which don't behave quite well? Yeah, so since we're talking about the well-behaved function, maybe let's discuss also some functions which are ill-behaved, maybe. Let's see. Okay, while you also think, let me also write here. There are so many, but let me just simply write one. This guy actually. You know this guy? The modulus of x. So actually, if you plot the modulus of x function, it is not well behaved. Why? Because actually the graph will be something like this. Yeah. So you see, there is a kind of sharp turns. You know, like there's all of a sudden you have to change your direction, and that's we don't want. You know, in life we want smoothness. We want, you know, like a happiness. We don't want this like a quick or the sharp turns or this kind of situation. So we call them ill-behaved, and that is the reason tangent x, perfect. Hassan is saying tangent x is also ill-behaved because actually, let me show you tangent x quickly. Very nice thing. Let me quickly type here 10x. Oh, sorry, not here, but here. So see, these functions are also not very good because they have asymptote, or they are not defined at particular value. So we cannot find the derivative of those functions throughout the region. So also, you know, that is the reason we cannot find the derivative of y equals modulus of x function. We can only find the derivative of a function which is well behaved and smooth. By the way, in calculus, there is a specific name. We call them continuous functions, and there are also some other terms, but let's call them well behaved. All right. Okay. So we learned about polynomials. The second function, like second category of the function was, yeah, exactly. It's like COVID-19. We cannot control them. Yeah. Thank you, Wakar. Do you remember what was the second category of functions? The first one was polynomials. The second category was, it was trigonometric. All right. So we already wrote here. The second category was trigonometric. Okay. Let's try to understand them. You know, I already know that I'm sure that most of you already know about sine theta, cos theta. But let's see. There is also one thing I really want to emphasize here. So see if you can. Yeah, thank you, Waqas Tariq Dar. So sine theta, you already know how we define them. So it is all about the triangle. So let's make a quick triangle here. And so just be with me, and then you will soon see there's a very dire, serious problem. So this is how we define sine theta, right? So this has to be 90 degrees. So sine theta is going to be opposite over hypotenuse. And let's say this is adjacent. So sine theta we defined as opposite over hypotenuse, right? So for example, if you want to find the sine of, let's say, 60 degree, we can, this theta is going to be 60 degree, and then we can simply find out what is the opposite side and hypotenuse, and we can divide them, and the ratio will always be some constant, which is going to be, in this case, half root 3. Okay, and similarly, if you want to find sine 30 degree, we can simply reduce the angle, and then the ratio of opposite over hypotenuse is, it will give me 1/2. Okay, this makes sense. No issue, right? Let me ask you a question, and then I will see if we still have an issue or not. What is this value then? Sine 135 degree. How can I define this angle? Yes. Yeah, actually not actually links. Someone is saying that, you know, my math skills are class 5. Yeah, actually, you know, here the idea is that we are going to use GeoGebra, no issues. So you don't have to actually learn these things, but I just really want you to pay attention to the fundamental concept. You know, if you define, yeah, 90 plus 45, perfect. So we can also work on that way. But how can, you know, the definition of sine theta was opposite over hypotenuse. Can this angle be more than 90 degree? You know, like the problem is that, you know, I cannot have this theta. This cannot be more than 90 degrees, right? This theta. It has to be less than 90 degrees. That means if we use this definition, opposite over hypotenuse, we are unable to define sine of the angle which is more than 90 degree, or even 90 degree, something like this. You understand the problem? That means this definition of opposite over hypotenuse is not complete, or I can say, if you allow me, I can say this is wrong definition. I mean, this is not how we should define. If we define this way, then we are not able to define sine 180 degrees, for example. So is there any other way to define sine theta? Yeah, so you were saying sine like 90 plus 45 equals sine 45. What about then sine 139.7? So it's not easy all the time, you see, like all those problems. So if we use a triangle, this doesn't work very often. So we have to improve this very definition. So do you have any idea, by the way? How can we improve this, the definition of the triangle? You know, we should not be using the triangle. This isn't fail. Like I can say it's epic fail. Because it doesn't work even the angle with 90 degree or even more than 90 degree. By the way, this is C. So any solution, by the way, you have. How can we define them, you know, by definition? Okay, so to define them, actually, we have something, you might have seen them or you will see them in coming classes, and they're called the one and only unit circle. So let me just tell you what are they quickly. And it's also, I'm emphasizing here because of the reason that these are, if you understand this concept, the basic concept, then it will be quite easy to understand the derivative and to find especially the applications of derivative. Okay, so how we define actually sine theta and cosine theta? So the sine of a number alpha or an angle alpha, which we write as sine alpha or sine theta or sine x, same thing, is the distance of the point A from the horizontal axis. Okay, so what it means actually, you know, let's say, let me make the triangle here. Same triangle, right? But now we are going to make a triangle inside the unit circle, and the vertical, you know, the vertical component of this point will give me the value of sine theta. Okay, and the horizontal will give us cos theta. And since, you know, that point can also be moved across the circle, so we can also find the angle more than 90 degrees. So for example, once the point is here, right? Once the point is here, so I will again make a triangle. So the vertical component of this triangle will always give me the sine theta. Okay, this will be the theta, and the horizontal component will give me the cosine theta. All right. So this point can also go like this. It can make a 360 degree, and interestingly, it can also continue its path. It can also make 720 degrees or 1080 degrees, like two revolution, 3 revolution, or how much. It can also go backward. So it can also go like a, you know, and in the clockwise direction. So we can also have a definition of the negative angles, let's say sine of negative 30. So this is actually a much better way to define sine and cosine. The triangle ones doesn't work for us. The triangle method is only for the kids, okay, not for us. All right. Let me show you one. So as you can see here, so the graph of the sine also we can understand the graph of the sine function from this idea. Actually, let me simply erase this thing so you can see. So let's ponder for a while what is happening to the point here, you know, this point, and you see the vertical component of the point when it is moving. So the vertical component actually gives you the sine curve. Like this is how the sine curve is made. So there is a connection between sine curve and the unit circle. So the unit circle actually is the ultimate thing you should understand. You must understand to understand all the trigonometric functions, not just sine, but also cosine. So the cosine is also given as the horizontal distance, and you know, we don't have much time. Otherwise, I could have spent more time here. All right, so let's move on. So we can define sine and cosine here, and I want you to show to reflect. On this curve basically. So this is the unit circle. Just to use the red color. The unit circle here, and this is the sine curve. This is the cosine curve. Because the cosine curve starts from the maximum value. You know, when x is 0, the horizontal component is maximum. So when, you know, once the particle is here, when the particle is here, the horizontal component is maximum. You see, that's why the cos starts from the maximum value. You see the connection? Okay, then we have tangent theta. Tangent theta is something like this. You know, it's like a very, very fancy curve. It has lots of, you know, breakage, and it's really ill-behaved function. That's why we don't like tangent theta, and that is the reason whenever you use most of the real world problem, we model them through sine and cosine, not say tangent. Like generally, this is not the case. Of course, in some cases it is, but not in general. So we use sine theta and cosine theta when we model the springs and atomic motions and simple harmonic motions and so on. Okay, any question? Is tangent function defined for 90 degree? It does not. It's not defined, of course. And okay, let's also have a look how we can define the tangent function from the unit circle. That's also very important. That's just to see how the very simple example or how the very simple concept helps us understand so many things. Okay, like generally, unfortunately, in our textbooks, things are given as a lot of like a different, like a quite complicated way. But once we find like a connecting point, we can connect all those things together. So since we have learned about the unit circle, okay, thank you. Thank you. But okay, let's see if we can have there's a request that we should focus more on the unit circle. So let me do it then. Okay, we have another unit circle quickly. Let's see. So at this point, this is a point here, right? Point P, and this makes angle theta, or let's call it angle X here, not even theta, X, yeah, from the X-axis. And this points, it can go, it can move on the circle, right? It can go like this. So when it's make the full circle, this makes the full period of a sine curve. So let's try to sketch the sine curve. Actually, my idea was to explain you the tangent function. I wrote even tangent in a very colorful manner. But since there's a request that we have to focus more on the unit circle, let me spend a bit more time here to understand the sine theta and cosine theta. And actually, this is very, very important thing. I can safely say this is really going to help you finding the values of sine 30, sine 0, sine 90, and so on. So let's spend a bit more time. So let's see what happens when the particle is at this point. Yeah, at this point. This point. Okay. So let's focus on the y component of this point. So let me make a next here. So just tell me what is the y component of this point. If the point is here at this point, what is the y component? As you can see here, this is totally on the x-axis. There is no y component, right? The y component is 0. So let me the graph is going to start from the 0 point, yeah, of the sine function, because we are defining the sine x. Sine x actually is the y component of the point. So what happens when we move this point? Sorry, when we move this point, when we start from here and then we continue like this, and we reach at this point. What is the y component of the point here at this point? And by the way, I really forgot to tell you the word unit circle. What is the meaning of the word unit? What it signifies? It means one. Okay, Mukas, you are so quick. Oh, okay, it is one. Yeah, the unit mean it is one. Sorry, this is one. That means the radius of the circle. It's always one. Yeah. So the length, the radius of the circle like this, it is one. By the way, so when the point it starts from here, then it goes here. The y component is one. That means when the angle is, this is the 0 angle, and this is 90 degree, this is 180 degree, for example, and this is 360. So when the point is at 90 degree, it is going to be the maximum value, okay, like this. So when the point continues its journey from this point to this point, when it reaches here, what is the y component here? The y component going to be 0 again at this point. You see, it's pure horizontal. That's why the graph continues, it goes to 0 at 180 degrees. And actually it should be something like this. I'm sorry, I think I made a mistake here. It should be 270. And this point is 360. So I mean, I just gave you a quick idea how you can make a sketch of the sine function. That's why the sine function starts from the origin, from 0. So when angle is 0, it is 0. So what about the cos function? So let me do it even a better way. So this is 0 degree. This is 90 degree, this is 180, this is 270, this is 360. By the way, these numbers 90, 180, these are the quadrant, yeah? They are the difference between them is 90 degrees. So let's see about the cosine function. So when the particle is at this point, yeah, what is the value on what is the x component or the horizontal component? It is 1. So that means, the graph of cos x must start from the maximum value, okay? So when the particle starts its journey from here to this point 90 degree, this becomes 0. So the point will go like this. And then, from 90 degree, when it goes here, this becomes -1, you see, because this is -1, by the way, on the negative side. So the graph will be at 180 degree, it will be something like this, -1. From -1, it continues. When it goes here, this becomes 0 again, and this becomes +1 again. So it will be like this and like this. So this is our famous cosine functions. Okay. By the way, I also urge you to memorize these two graphs. These are extremely, extremely, extremely important, especially when we do derivative. I will refer sin x and cosine x. So you must always recall these two functions. Okay. So this is how we sketch them. Okay. Is that clear? If you shall we also discuss about tangent function? How we can understand the tangent function from this unit circle? Apparently, it's not very obvious. Yeah, I mean, there's no way we can see those weird-looking functions. Yeah, you see this function, tangent function, is quite weird. So how can we understand them from this unit circle? So let's do this one. So let's make for the tangent. What I need? I need one extra thing. I need a tangent line on this circle. So what I will do, at this point, you see this point. Let me change even the color, my color. Let me use the blue color. Yeah. So we have this point, and I'm going to make a tangent line on this point. Okay. So this point is a tangent line, right? Tangent. And by the way, by definition, tangent line is a line which crosses the curve at most once, at that particular point. So that's the tangent. So what we do now, actually, we are going to extend this point, like when the particle is here, I'm going to extend this is further. And when we extend this line, the extended line crosses the tangent line at this point. You see this point. So let's call this. Okay, we don't need to even call anything. So let's discuss what do we have right now. Let me use a different color. Sorry. What is this, by the way? What is this line? This line is sine theta, right? This line. And this line is, as by definition, this line is cos theta. Okay. So in this triangle, when we have this triangle, let me show you this triangle. This small triangle. This one is sine theta, and this one is cos theta. Is that clear? Okay. Then we also have another triangle, as you can see here, the bigger one. From here, if you continue, this one, then we go up, and then we come down like this. So we have two triangles. And these two triangles are similar triangle. Okay. So when we say similar, then that means we can compare their ratio of the sides. Okay. So let's see. We have two triangles. Again, let me quickly tell you. This one is the first triangle, and the second triangle is this one. Okay. This one is the second triangle. So let's try to when we see in the smaller triangle, we have a ratio is called sine theta over cos theta. Okay. So, when we divide these two guys, so this should be equals to, if we compare this ratio to the bigger triangle, so to corresponding to the sine theta, we have this line, right? So what is this line, by the way? This length of the line? We have no idea. I mean, we don't know much about we don't know anything about this line. So let's call it T for now. I will call this as T. So this length is, we call them T. So this is going to be sine theta. The corresponding line to sine theta is T, right? And the corresponding line to cos theta, we have cos theta here. This is cos theta. So in the bigger triangle, we have this line. So what is the value of this line? This bigger line? So this is the radius of the circle, and this is equals to, yes, anyone? This equals 1 exactly. And why 1? Because of the definition, this is the unit circle. So as you can see here, sine theta or cos theta, because that equals to T, and that is exactly how we define sine theta. So sine theta or cos theta, we call, instead of calling them then T, we call them tangent theta. Why? Because this also depends on the angle theta. So this length is called the tangent theta. This is how we define the tangent function. Okay, just a couple of more inspiration or understanding. When this point, let's say this point, of course this point can move on the circle. When this point goes to this point here, what happens to the tangent line? So if the particle is at this point, and if you expand this point in order for the line to touch the tangent line, you see there is no connection because these two lines are parallel, and that is the reason tangent 90 degree is undefined, because it goes to infinity. You see the point? Let me just quickly tell you what I'm saying in another way. So let me use the color. So pink one. So for example, like, if the point move on to this point, let's say this point, when it comes here at this point. So the same thing we will continue. We will extend this line until it reaches the line here, right? But once the point goes like to this point here, then if I extend this point like this, it is going to go to because since they are parallel line, it will never cross the tangent line. That is why the tangent 90 degree is undefined at 90 degree. So you can also understand from here. Okay, then I think this much is enough for the unit circle. If you're interested, I can also assign some questions on unit circle and something more. But let's move on because we have only 30 minutes and
here's some information.
Oh, sorry. Okay, let's move on. Is there any question about the trigonometric functions? So we have covered two categories. One was the polynomial functions. The second one was the trigonometric functions. All right. And we have learned also how we define them and how we can unify them. So unification is the core concept in not only in mathematics, but also in all the sciences. Actually, not in all the knowledge. We always want to unify some things. Yeah. I mean, in physics, we are always wanting to know about the theory of everything and so on. So that is our ultimate purpose, and we get help from mathematics to unify things. So unification is important. I also recommend you, whenever you study anything, try to unify, try to find some connections. And by the way, just pick any two things in the universe, whatever it is, doesn't matter. There is always a connection, okay? The only thing is that how you can find that connection, but they are always related or connected. Okay, so let's move on to the next big part. What was the third category of the functions which you have to study? Exponential. Yeah, exactly. Thank you, Hamid Bangash. All right. Exponential and logarithmic function, actually, yeah, it's here. So even though the exponential functions and the logarithmic function, they are super important. I'm tempting to spend a bit more time also on exponential. Like the very idea of exponential is not that simple, by the way. But let me see if I have time. So, but I mean, I just want you to know this is the function of the exponential. This is the exponential function, how it looks like. It starts from, it has asymptote here, and it continues. As you can see here, they are moving, they are increasing, and they're also increasing at a faster rate. So the rate of change is also changing, by the way. So they're increasing. Of course, this function are increasing. If I make a function like this, like a straight line, this function is also increasing. You see, when you go in the positive x-axis, it also increases, but it is increasing with a constant rate. But this function, this is a very special function, exponential function. This is increasing with ever changing rate of the increment. Okay. And the logarithmic function actually is the same thing as exponential. There is no, it's just the perspective. Exponential and logarithmic function, they're together actually. So do you know, by the way, how they're connected? What is the connection between these two guys, or how can we unify them? What is the, like, of course, there's a formula you might have seen maybe somewhere, but what is the connection between them theoretically or conceptually? Anyone? So how can we relate exponential and logarithmic function? Okay, thank you, Wakas. We have got a mirror image. Okay, not mirror image, of course, it is an image on y equals x-axis. So they're inverse function, by the way. Yes, exactly. And that is the reason, on your calculator, generally the logarithmic function and exponential function, they are next to each other, okay? Because they are related, they are inverse of each other. Okay. So shall we discuss something about exponential or move on? Okay, let me do it very quickly. Maybe I will take 5 minutes because I think so we all know what do we mean by exponent, right? Let me actually add a slide. Just give me a second. I have to add the slide here. What is that? Okay, so exponent, we all know what do we mean by exponent, right? So basically, if you have 2 to the power 3, and we know this is 2 times 2 times 2, right? 2 times 2 times 2, and we know this is going to be 8. I mean, we know how it works. Is there any question here? For example, if you have 2 to the power 5, this is going to be 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2, right? Is there any other way to define the exponent? Yeah, I mean, you understand like how we find the exponent. Okay, if that is the case, let me ask you a question then. If we define the exponent like this, then what is this guy? 2 to the power minus 3. So how can we define 2 like negative 3 times, for example, like from this concept? Even like, what about this one then? 2 to the power, let's say 3.5 or 3.27. How can we multiply 2 3.27 times? Yes, anyone? Like my question is that how do we understand the exponent? What are they exactly? So if you say the exponent means the number of times we multiply the number by itself, if that is the definition, then how we can define this guy, for example? How can we define them? Actually, I'm not interested in the value of what is 2 to the power minus 3 right now. You can of course tell me it is going to be 1/8 or something, but I just want you to expand this thing, because we want to understand the fundamentals, right? So anyone, how can we understand them? How can we define 2 to the power minus 3 or 2 to the power 3.27? Or let me actually make your life even more miserable. Let me ask you another question. What is this? 2 to the power 0. Like, of course you know the answer, maybe some of you already know the answer, but I want you to tell me the concept behind this guy. Using log. Yeah, of course, we will use log maybe, but first we have to understand them. The exponent, this is a thing which we have already seen in grade 5, 6, yeah? And we want to know them, like we know them. So what is the reason, I just want you to really understand, whenever you take anything from the book or from the formula, you have to question, why is that so? So if we define the exponent like these two guys, I'm sorry. And how can we define these three things? 2 to the power 0. For example, like we know that the value of 2 to the power 0 is 1, but how is that so? How it is 1, or 2 to the power minus 2, for example? So actually, let me just tell you what is happening here. It is 1, but why it is 1? It's not just a definition, but it has to make sense. So any idea? Okay, let me quickly tell you. Actually, this is a big debate, or I mean, it's also like a full-fledged topic. Let me try to summarize. I hope it will make sense to you. Can we call exponential? Actually, exponential function, logarithmic function, they are well-behaved function in the particular domain, especially for the logarithmic function. Exponential function, they are quite well-behaved. Actually, they are very, 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 very well-behaved. I will discuss also exponential function, but the logarithmic function, they're also well-behaved, except at 0 or less than 0. Yeah, we have to restrict the domain. Okay, thank you for asking this question. So exponential functions, they are well-behaved function. So they are okay for all the values of x, but not the logarithmic function. Okay, let me tell you what is the meaning of, let's say we have a to the power, let's say x equals b. So, in this case, this is this is the exponential function, right? So basically here the a actually, the a actually is the, if you want to understand what are they, let's call them growth rate. So this tells you how something is growing. In our case, let's say if we have 2 to the power, let's say 2 to the power 4 equals something, I don't know, equals something, not x even, let me make it n. So this actually, the base tells you the growth, like how much something is growing. For example, like, in this case, it is growing by, it's a doubling, for example. If you have 2 to the power something, that means it is doubling every time, every second. sorry. And this x actually is the time. So basically, you know, if you have 2 to the power 4, that means the rate of change is 2. So the thing is doubling. And what happens to the thing after 4 seconds? So this is actually 4, the power 4 here. Let me even box this thing, this guy. This power 4 will tell you this is the time, right? After 4 seconds, what is going to be? So, you know, if something is doubling, so after 4 seconds, there will be 16. You know, after 1 second, there will be 2. Then 2 seconds will be 4. Then 3 seconds will be 8. And after 3rd second, they will become 16. Okay, so this is the time and this is the growth rate, you can say, and this b is the output or the resultant value, how much is going to be at the end. Okay, so now let's try to understand all these three guys. So 2 to the power 3 means if something, the rate is like it is doubling every second. So what is the final value 3 seconds before now? Okay, even like let's try to answer this one. The first one, like let's try to answer this one first. So 2 to the power 0. That means the rate is doubling. Of course, something is doubling. But what is the value at 0 second? So at 0 second. Okay, sorry. You don't see my screen? Okay. Thank you, Hassan. So my question was that, you know, let's try to understand what is the 2 to the power 0 equals 1. So something is doubling, and what is the amount of the thing at the 0 second? So at the 0 second, we have 100%, right? So the thing should be 100%. It is in full capacity or 100%. That is why it is 1. 1 means 100%. So when the time, let's say at 2 to the power minus 2. So what is the quantity 2 seconds before? So if you go 2 seconds backward, so right now it is 1. So 1 second before it is 1 over 2, and 2 seconds before it is 1 over 4. Okay, so this becomes 1 over 4. All right. So I mean, this is the main idea of the exponential function. It tells you how something is changing. All right. So whenever there is a change, there has to be exponential function, by the way. So remember this thing. If you are modeling any natural phenomena, natural mean like which is in nature, you will almost always you will end up with some exponential function always. I mean, unless the change is made by humans or it is artificial change. But if the change is by the nature, so there is always or approximately always there will be exponential function. By the way, that's why, you know, the exponential, the second thing comes in our mind is exponential growth, because they are connected. And just one thing more, whenever we talk about exponential, we have this guy E actually, you know, this is the irrational number, it's like pi, and the value of E is 2.718 and 28. And since, you know, in nature, you will see E a lot. Whenever you are modeling any, especially if you're learning physics or anything, you will see E comes out so many times. You know, be it the rate of cooling, or for example, rate of reaction in chemistry when you study the rate of reactions, or, you know, whenever there is something changing in nature, like naturally, there will be E. E will be there, is part of the equation. Okay. Maybe at some point, if you ask, I will also describe what E is and how we can, like, what is the nature of E, you know, how we can derive these values, 2.78, 1828, by the way, it continues, it goes on, doesn't stop here, it's irrational number. Okay, so I think with this introduction to the different types of functions, polynomials and trigonometric and exponential and logarithmic function, I'm not actually touching upon the logarithmic function because it will take, I think, the rest of my time. I just need to move on. But you understand, you know, the logarithmic function is the reverse or the inverse of the function of exponential function, like this. I think it's time for us to move on to our very own derivative. And we have 15 minutes and we have to do so many things. And that is the fun part, okay? So let's continue, but let me see if you have any question before we move on to the derivative concept. Any question? All right. Yeah, that's the life is, you know, the Vakar is saying fun part has only a few minutes. Yeah, exactly. So, you know, whenever you're happy, the time passes so quickly. So that is the part of the life. Yeah. So, and since we like calculus a lot, so time passes so fast. Okay, no problem. We can still do it. And yeah, I mean, but this is also very important. We really have to understand the fundamentals. Otherwise, you know, it doesn't make sense unless we don't know what is happening. Okay, so it's all about the mindset or understanding or the feeling. Actually, let me even write it here. The feeling, you have to develop the feelings with mathematics. And that is the, you know, someone asked how we can improve our mathematics. So you have to feel it. That is, I mean, I always say this thing to myself, you know, you really have to feel things, feel the mathematics, and your life will be changed forever. Yeah, it's a very fun thing, by the way. Okay, so derivative, let's try to feel them, you know. So basically to feel the derivative, generally when you study you see the books, you see these kind of pictures and you see the formulas, something like this, you know, derivative of dy or dx, and limit delta x goes to 0, and f of x plus delta x minus f of x, or it's already here, delta x. So whenever you like, generally in the book, you start the derivative from here, and when you see this equation, your feeling dies out, right? You have no more feeling, because this is such a, you know, apparently it seems quite weird, and you know, not weird, but you know, it's a lot of calculations, it seems. So of course, you know, that as I told you, the algebra, and this is kind of algebraic way of understanding derivative. We have to rely on algebra. Algebra is a very powerful thing. But let's try to approach the derivative from the graph perspective, but we will also do the algebraic way of understanding derivative, okay? Which one shall we do first? The algebraic way or the graphical way? Okay, let me decide myself. Okay, so this is the derivative. Don't scared with this equation. I mean, I will try to make it as simple as possible. Let's do from the graph first. Okay, Ahmed, let's continue how Ahmed is saying. So let's continue with the graphical way. So basically the derivative from the first principle. This is called the first principle, by the way, first principle. And this is also called the algebraic way. So principle, yeah. We will do from the first principle. So just to show you how it works, but we will also continue working with graphical thing first. Okay. Yeah, thank you, Hassan. Okay, but before actually we discuss about the graphical way, I want to show you this table. You might have seen this already, and if you haven't taken calculus before, then you will see this for the first time. So there's a lots of formulas and all those things. We will come back to these formulas, and we will also try to make them simpler. We will only learn 6 or 7 formulas, and rest we can derive from there. Let's move on, and let's do the graphical way, because as Hassan is saying, picture speaks 1,000 words. Okay, so let's do the graphical way. But before we do it, actually, there's also an activity on GeoGebra. So let's try to understand 3 main things. The first thing is that, you know, when the curve is increasing, the gradient is positive. The gradient, you mean like the slope, right? Same thing, slope or the gradient is positive. And we all know this thing, you know, if the curve, if the line is something like this, if it is going up, the gradient is going to be positive, all right? And if it is going down, for example, if you have a curve like this going down, the gradient is going to be negative. So keep that in mind. Keep that in mind. It is extremely important. And when the tangent is horizontal, the gradient or the slope is going to be 0. Okay. And it has many special names, stationary points and turning points, and so a maximum or minimum. We will discuss why they have so many names in our upcoming sessions. Okay, so let's try to see how we can sketch the derivative of this graph. Right now, we have no idea what is this curve. Maybe some of you might have realized we have already discussed this. This is actually one of the famous polynomial. Can someone remember? Yeah. What is this function, by the way? What is this function? It's not a quadratic. It's a cubic function, by the way. But right now we are not interested in the function itself. We just want to make the sketch of this derivative. So the rule is that, we will always start from the maximum or minimum point, okay, or the turning point. So at this point, the curve is turning, right? It is, before it was going up and now it is going down. Is there any other point which is also the turning point? Is there any second turning point? Yes, of course. We also have here, right? From here, because before the graph was going down, and after this point, the graph is going up. So we only know these 2 points. Always we start with these 2 points, and then let's see how we make the curve of the graph, how we sketch the graph of how we sketch the derivative of this curve. So before this point, the curve is increasing. Sorry, the curve is going up, right? That means that the derivative function must be positive. And at this point, the derivative function must be 0. That means the graph will be passing from this point and also this point. Okay. So before this point, since the graph is increasing, the curve should be positive. So it will be, you see, here we have the positive curve. And after this point, then the graph is going down like this. It's going down here. So the graph must be negative until it reaches this point. At this point, the graph must be 0, right? Because at the minimum or maximum point, the derivative is 0, or the change is 0, by the way. Let me not use the word derivative because we want to define them. The change is 0, okay? Like this. Sorry for my bad drawing, but continue like this. So you see the curve? You understand how it happens? So remember, at the maximum point or the minimum point, the change is 0, by the way. Why change is 0? Because if you make the tangent at this point like this, you see, this is the horizontal line. So for the horizontal line, the slope of that line is 0. Okay, so the slope of this line is 0. That is why. Let me actually solve 1 or 2 questions, and then I will assign you a task on GeoGebra right now. Okay, and I will also be monitoring you, so you can also make the intuition, develop the intuition yourself. But let me do 1 more question for you. Which one shall we do? Let's do this one, the second part. Yeah, this one. So we have actually, we will start from the minimum point or the maximum point. So this is the minimum, the turning point. And we know if you make the tangent here, the tangent line is, the slope of the tangent line is 0. That means the curve must pass from this point, the derivative, okay? So what is happening before this point? The curve is going down, it is decreasing. That means the graph must be negative, or the derivative must be negative. And after this point, the derivative curve should be positive. So there's only one way I can sketch this thing like this. It has to be like this and like this. So this curve, this red line is the derivative of the curve. And let me just show you one thing. This is the graph actually of the x square, kind of. It's not actually exactly x square, but of course there's something. But it's essentially, this is parabola, okay? And this line is a linear equation. It's a line, okay? That means the derivative of x square is a straight line. We will discuss these things, but I just want you to build your intuition. And for this, actually, right now, I want you to do something. I'm just talking for last more than 1 hour. So it's your turn. It's your turn to do something. And let me just show you what are you going to do. I want you to log into your GeoGebra right now. Okay. So you all have, I think you're already using the laptop, so you can simply open a new tab and you can move to the GeoGebra and you can go to your group. I think you have already joined. If you haven't joined, so I think Mohsina has already shared the code on the chat box. So I also already shared the link also with you. So I hope you're already here. If you're not, just let me know in the chat box and maybe the Mohsina will help you. And then go to this calculus. You already have this thing. Yeah. And what I want you to do right now is to work on this task. Or let me actually even tell you one, and you can just do the second one. Let me just show you. You will also do this as an assignment, but let me just show you what are you supposed to do. Just click on this. Okay, I want, you see these red points. If you move this up and down, you see this, the point here, it changes. What I want you to do is to change these red points so that these lines, they become the tangent on the curve. So you see, whenever you have this kind of thing, if you move up, this is a tangent right now. This line is not a tangent, right? So if you move it like this down, this becomes a tangent right now. And if you make it up like this becomes a tangent. So I want you to do this thing, but not for this function. I will tell you which function you will be doing. You understand the idea? Let me go back. Sorry, file, groups, and so I want you to, you see the intuitive derivative graphing and CC. CC stands for, by the way, Calculus Connects. I want you to click on this one, and you have to work. You will see this screen, and you can of course read if you want, but I can just quickly tell you. You have to now, this time you have to move these white points so that the points, with the red and the green points, these lines, they become the tangent on the curve at that particular point. So you have to move it up, either up or down, okay? And once you have done this thing, so, once you make this kind of, let me just do it randomly. So this curve, actually, this white thing will make the derivative curve, okay? So I want you to do it right now. Just try yourself, all of you, and I can monitor you from my screen here. Intuitive, okay? So I can see the Elaf has already started, and please do so. And Nadia Tajik is already on it. So all of you, this activity is super important to understand what exactly the derivative is, okay? And then, once I show you the formula and everything, things will make more sense, things will connect. But important thing is to build the intuition. The formulas, everyone knows the formula. Even a child knows the formula, okay? All those derivative formulas, but we have to understand what is exactly the derivative is. So right now I'm just monitoring. I see only 2% have already started. What about the rest of you guys? Okay, so please, everyone, you have to, even if you're struggling, yeah, I already got this feedback. Some of you are struggling how to use GeoGebra and Google Classroom. So at this point, I really want you, I want to emphasize these, learning on this LMS or this kind of interface is also very important. It's as important as learning calculus, because these days, we have the technology. So if you're struggling, so do ask us and we will help you. But make sure that you know how it works. And I really want you to use algebra thoroughly to understand the calculus and to be able to solve. Why? Because once you go to the university, most of your problems, if you know how to use it efficiently, you will see your life, you will be very happy. You can do so many things, a lot of investigations and also the experiments. You can rely on GeoGebra, you can make mathematical models and so on, okay? So please do so, and we are here to support you. So I still don't see, there are so many people: Adnan, Bilal, Daniel, Dr. Wakar, Hamza, Hiba, Huda, Ibn Tariq, Inshal, Junaid, Qadir, Mahnoor, Mohsina, Muhammad Abdullah, Hasib, Usman, and Shayan. So is there any reason you are unable to join, or just let us know in the chat box, please, if you're unable to do it right now. So Elaf has finished. Let me see how he is done. Where's Elaf? Yeah, thank you, Elaf. Yeah. Okay, Elaf, I see your screen. You can also see, if you use this pencil, this pencil, and you can also sketch the graph, yeah, like this. And once you're done, you can just check on this checkbox and then see if you have got it right. So Asif, yeah, actually, yes, you have to create your account because that's how I can monitor you, I can see you. So do create your account. If you're using Google Chrome something, you can simply use your Gmail account. It can associate directly. Maybe Hiba, are you're saying you are doing, but it's not showing your name. Are you logged in? I mean, have you created your account? It might be the reason. Actually unable to open class at GeoGebra. Okay, can't connect. All right, so no issue. I mean, there is issue if you're unable to connect right now, but do continue practicing and let us know in the how you can connect us. You can find a way to talk to us, either to me or Miss Mohsina, and make sure that you do these practices. Okay. If you're unable to connect, let us know, and we will try to support you maybe on individual basis, hopefully. So as you can see here, let me just show you the Elaf's work, Elaf Eskinder. If I click here and then, yeah, so this is how the derivative curve looks like. Okay, so you can check your answer, and then as you can see here, the derivative actually it gives you, I mean, you will try to start building up your intuition, and then we will discuss about the formula. Let me spend maybe, oh, we already have spent our time. There's also a question here, what is the slope of the tangent line at the maximum and minimum point? So you also have to write the answer here. And yeah, exactly. So let me go back. Adnan, okay, Adnan hasn't started yet. Okay, let me go back to the main GeoGebra. Okay, but it's good to see most of you have already started. Muhammad Raza already finished. Thank you. Bilal has finished. By the way, let me see Bilal's answer. Perfect, Bilal. Bilal, you also have to answer the question at the end. It says what is the slope of the tangent line at the minimum or maximum point. Okay, so do so. Okay, since we have limited time, I have to rush. I'm sorry. I know time passes so super fast when we have fun. So let me quickly go back to my slides right now. So again, continue. If you are still unable to know how to use GeoGebra, do ask us. Okay, and we will try to support you. Okay, but as I see, most of the people, I think more than 50%, they are already in here. So yeah. Okay, Link, I don't see your name. I don't know who is Link here. Link to everyone. Just stay with us maybe, or after the class. So we will try to support you. Okay, let me move on. You know, this is how we can understand from the graph and so on. So let me quickly tell you what is happening here. I'm sorry for rushing, but that's the life is. So as you can see here, this is you know, here we have this is a parabola, and the derivative, you know, from the graphical point of view, we see this is a linear line, linear equation, and maybe I will try to assign you these questions to sketch them on Google Classroom if you insist. So let me just try to focus on this guy. No, not this guy. Let me just tell you what is happening actually in the derivative. This is the formula. Where is this thing? Sorry. So the first law for the derivative is the power law. This is actually called the power law or power rule. And why we call them power? Because we have power here. That actually essentially means, you know, if you have x to the power, let's say 2, and if you find the derivative, this is, you know, d over dx, this is how we write the derivative symbol. So the derivative is going to be, according to this power law, is going to be 2 times, you know, this power, this exponent will become the coefficient times x to the power 2 minus 1. So which is going to be 1 only. So this is going to be 2x. And that is the reason, you know, when you differentiated this curve here, this parabola, you got a straight line. As you can see here, when you differentiate x squared, you get 2x. So that is, as you can also see from here also. So let's do one more example. We have d over dx, let's say, and this time we have x cubed. So x cubed, you know, the power law says it's going to be 3 times x to the power 2. So this is the cubic equation, you know, and then the derivative of the cubic equation is this becomes the parabola, as you can see in this picture. This blue curve is the cubic equation, if you remember from our polynomial functions, and this red guy is the parabola. Okay, but again, you have to ask how we like do you have to memorize this formula? So I will say yes, you should memorize, but maybe next time when we start our lesson, we will start from the derivative from the first principle, like the boring way or the algebraic method, which you see mostly in the book. But I will try to solve 1 or 2 questions to maybe make you understand what is happening, if you really want so. Otherwise, you can also see these things from the book also. In most of the books, you will see these things. But we can also derive this expression from the first principle. But this is a power law. I really want you to memorize them. Okay. The second thing is that this one. What about this function? You see, what is this function, by the way? Can someone tell me quickly? By the way, can I have your 5 more minutes? Or, you know, I'm already taking up your time. Yeah. Okay, so let's continue then. Maybe 5 more minutes. So this is exponential curve, right? So we have to, let's try to sketch the derivative of this curve. So first of all, we have to see that the function is increasing, right? So that means the derivative must be always positive. I mean, this is the first thing, you know, because the function is always increasing. By the way, you might have a feeling that, you know, if it continues, it might goes to the negative side, but actually it never goes to the negative value. Even it doesn't crosses the x-axis. If you zoom in, you will always find there's still some gap between the curve and the x-axis. So this function actually, this is e to the power x. This is never negative. It's always positive function, by the way. Okay, so let's try to see how the derivative of this function looks like. So the derivative actually, it is a function which is increasing, and so there's only one function, like not only one function, but one of the function, you know, if I make the derivative, it can be like this, yeah. But the problem with this kind of curve is that, okay, this is also increasing, but you know, if I continue this line, you know, because the lines they're always continuous. If I continue, it also becomes negative, and we know that the derivative cannot be negative. So I cannot have this curve, by the way. This is the first reason. The second reason is that the exponential function it is increasing, but it is increasing with the increasing rate also. You see, you know, if I have 1 unit here in between, the distance like the rate is not that much. But if I have the same the length, let's say in these 2 points, then the increase is too much. So the increasing is also changing. That means if I want to make the derivative, this is not possible. This is not right curve, so I have to cross it. So actually, it turns out that the derivative of this function is this. The same function, you know, because the derivative is increasing, so it is always positive, and it is increasing with the increasing rate. That's how this curve actually tells you. So this is the only function in the universe which has the self derivative. So the derivative of the, if you want to find the derivative of exponential function, we get the same itself. Okay, by the way, as you can see here, there is a formulas, you know, you find these formulas everywhere, a lot of formulas. Maybe next time when we come in, we will spend maybe first 10-20 minutes making intuition, why the derivative of sine x is cos x, and so on. Then we will move on to integration. Okay, that is our first the task for the agenda for the third session. I have to stop here. I mean, even though I want to continue, but I have already taken your 5 minutes, and I'm really sorry for that. But I really hope that you have enjoyed and learned something, and you have built some feelings. Yeah, thank you, Jazakallah Wabakas. And yeah, so your task, actually, I would recommend you to go to the GeoGebra, and you know, you have done the intuitive derivative. So please do so, continue working on this. And there are also 2 or 3 more assignments for you. Okay, the thing is that these assignments are not going to be graded, yeah, because we don't want this course to be like a kind of school course. I mean, you're here not because you're forced to be here. You're here because you love mathematics, yeah, or you want to know the reality, the truth, and math helps us understand the truth of the universe or the reality. So I would recommend you to solve this constructing graph of derivative function. You know, just practice these things and the basic functions. Let me even show you what is this. Here you can, you know, I discuss all the polynomials, exponential, so you can also play with this, and you can see what is happening. You can turn off and off, turn them on and off. There's one question here. You can also answer this question. Okay, So I will try to monitor, I will try to see how much you are performing. So at least spend some time and make some intuition. Why I'm saying so? Because in coming days, I'm going to assign you even more challenging question on GeoGebra. So you have to really understand, you have to be familiar with the GeoGebra interface so that you should be able to do some more advanced activities, okay, in our coming sessions. Maybe our last project might be based on GeoGebra. All right. Okay, so let me end our session here. And I really want to thank you. And I'm